Fight Club.
There's something for every imagination at your local comic shop. Visit comicshoplocator.com to find a store near you.
What's up, everybody? What's up, the internet? It's Kyle. See? Hey, it's Kyle. See, I'm gonna get the hands worked out at some point, everybody. Like, it's a little tough, but I'm gonna get the hands worked out at some point. Welcome in to the pull list. We're here every Tuesday night on the comic book shopping experience, the EXP. We're here to talk about your pull list, which is the books that you've got coming out at your local comic shop this week that you should be picking up. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to talk about my pull list. Hi, Susie. I'm glad you found me. Anyhow, we're going to talk about my pull list, which are the books that I pick up from my local comic shop on a weekly basis when they come out. We're going to talk about local comic shops a lot today, or on this show, I should say. And we're going to talk about our friends at Comic Shop Locator. Guys, this whole show is brought to you by Comic Shop Locator, which is the way you find comic shops in your area. You go to comicshoplocator.com. What's up, Melzak? How you doing? Comic Shop Locator, and you punch in, I will show you. Share. Click the thing. There we go. Guys, you head over to Comic Shop Locator. You punch in a zip code like 58102, which is the zip code for Fargo, North Dakota. I use this because I'm watching the show Fargo right now, so I've been thinking about it. But this is the zip code for Fargo, North Dakota, and it tells you that there are 2 comic shops in Fargo, North Dakota, Paradox Comics and Cards, and Comic Junction on University Drive there in Fargo, North Dakota. That's how you use Comic Shop Locator, guys. You go over there and you tell them, hey, this is where I live, and they tell you, hey, here's where the comic shops are. And then you can go to those comic shops. Me personally, my local comic shop that I get my pull list from is Monarch Comics here in beautiful Toledo, Ohio. That's where my pull list is now. But we're going to talk about other stores. So in the comments, tell me, who is your local comic shop? Where do you get your pull list? Who is your local comic shop? And why do you like them? So we can shout them out here on the air, and we will do that. But we're going to start with some of the books on my list, books that are coming out this week. So we start with the first half of the show is always books that are on my list that are coming out this week. And then the second half is books you should be adding to your pull list to come out next week. Or not to come out next week. That will come out the first week of March. Wow, it's already the first week of March. It's already my birthday week, guys. That show the first week of March is going to be pretty wild because that Tuesday is my birthday. So maybe we'll do something special that day. Who knows? But the first book on my list for this week is this guy, Venom number 33. And the reason that Venom number 33 is on my pull list, one, is because Venom is awesome right now. Donnie Cates is doing awesome on Venom, and the artists he's had with him so far on Venom has been phenomenal. And we're actually going to have one of those artists on later with Nick and I in stores this week. Ryan Stegman will be joining us to talk about all things Venom, plus all things also that Ryan Stegman has done. But there's another reason that this book particularly interests me, Venom 33. It's true. Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman are amazing. But, this is Ryan didn't do the interiors on this book. He did a cover, but he didn't do the interiors. But needless to say, this run that they started and have been building out in this King in Black story and all this kind of stuff has been phenomenal. So I really want you guys to kind of understand this, that's that's not the only reason I like it. Not just because we have a guy on, who works on it. None of that. This is when the story gets to the part where I like it. So, you're coming out of Venom 32 and you've kind of got this, the King in Black null is kind of, or the King in Black and all that kind of stuff is kind of permeating the Marvel universe, right? And it's getting very bleak in the Marvel universe because there's so much Venom. There's so many symbiotes. There's so many problems with the symbiotes. So it's getting a little bleak out there. And the thing I like about it is this is one of those stories where your protagonist is driven just about to the edge. This is Eddie Brock is out there looking for hope. And he's not sure he can find any. In fact, going forward, from what you've experienced so far in the King in Black stuff, he's failing left, right, and center. So this is a great story because it's got this, story we like, these characters we like, pushed right to the brink of giving up. And that's when these stories, especially in comic books, really start to take on a new life and really start to grow and become something special, is in those bleak moments. One of the other books on my pull list that we will talk about this week, and I'm guessing we will be talking about this book a lot tonight on the couple of shows that I'm doing, is this one. This is DC Future State Next Batman. So this is Next Batman number 3. Guys, I don't know if you realize this, but Future State books are only 2 parts. Except for this one, and maybe a couple of others, but primarily this one is more than 2 parts, which is weird. But the adventures of the Next Batman continue in this book. It's Batman doing Batman things, but it's how do I put this? It's in the future, and Batman being Batman is not something that he should be being. Does that make sense? It's in the storyline we've come across on Next Batman. The fact that Batman is actually bad for Batman. And that sentence is hard to say, both physically and as a fan of the character. You shouldn't want Batman to not be Batman, but you kind of do for his own safety. But he's still out there Batmaning. And it's a really interesting look at it. And it's he's fighting his, he's doing his job. He's fighting crime. He's doing what he's supposed to do, but he's risking his life every time he does it. And so this is an interesting continuation on that story. But also there's a full outsider story in it, featuring Katana and Black Lightning. Black Lightning is a character that I don't think gets enough credit right now. It was a great show. And there's another season coming for Black Lightning. And then there's an Arkham Knight story. That, I'll be honest, if I had to pick the things I didn't love, I would say Arkham Knight is the thing I only like. I love the Batman stories. I love the outsider stories that have been happening. The Arkham Knight story are the things that I only just like, which is, again, not a bad thing. I like them a lot, but they're definitely the third story in there. The big thing, though, is that you've got some great baddies in those stories. Killer Croc, Clayface, Harvey Dent. That's I think the redeeming factor for me on those is that it's a very villain-centric story. So that's on my pull list this week. Again, guys, we're going to talk about books that are on my pull list that are coming out this week. And then later on in the episode, we'll talk about the things you should be adding to your pull list. Things that, are coming out in the next few weeks. But let's talk about a book that started off really hot and has done nothing but get hotter, because right now anything in this universe just can't miss. Do a little change there. Star Wars The High Republic #2. Guys, Star Wars The High Republic #1 was one of those books that they announced it and I was unsure about, and then it came out and I was like, oh my God, take all my money. I love Star Wars The High Republic. It's a canon story that's been canon for a while, but it's a new look and expanding that canon. It was, everybody knew the High Republic had existed, but nobody really knew what it was. And the people who did know what it was knew that it had been kind of removed from canon in the sort of traditional way. So this is a chance for it to come back in. There are some very interesting characters in this book. I'm trying to figure out how to talk about them without spoiling anything, and I don't think I can. The thing about Star Wars The High Republic is that everything it does really does just reinforce that old school Star Wars canon. Really does enforce that belief we've always had about the Jedi and about what happened before and about the past. And at the same time, it really does build on the world in a way that I think has been sorely missing in the Star Wars universe outside of The Mandalorian for a really long time. So there's that. Back over to DC, we have DC Future State Swamp Thing #2, written by my dude Ram V. Humanity comes back against the Swamp Thing. This is the end of the Future State story with the Swamp Thing. You're right, Melzak. It is the Jedi at their strongest and highest point back in High Republic. Let me bring that back up here. It is the Jedi at their strongest and highest point. And like I said, it reinforces the things that, as Star Wars fans, we always kind of knew, but they never really talked about. And this is them telling that story, which I think is why this book will continue to really be a favorite of Star Wars fans. All right, so back over to the Swampy. You've got, Ram V on Swamp Thing. The shadow of Swamp Thing Supreme stretches across the globe, as it has for centuries. Look, it's Ram V writing a dark Swamp Thing story. He is getting he will be heading, or helming, I should say, an ongoing Swamp Thing story after this is over, which is something that we have on our list of things that should be on your pull list for a couple weeks from now. But the thing about it is that it's the same old Swamp Thing, but told from a very unique perspective. And the art on this book has just been absolutely drop dead gorgeous, or at least it was in issue 1. But again, it's a future state book, which means it will probably sell out and have to go back to a second printing. So it's something you should definitely have on your pull list. Any of these future state books, as they're coming out, you should have either been adding them to your pull list to make sure you got them, or you need to make sure you're getting to your comic stores early in the morning so that they don't sell out. We'll do one more book before we take our first commercial break of the night, because this is another book that I can tell you right now on our shows tonight we're going to get into the weeds on, and that is DC Future State Flash. Nick likes to argue with me because I say Future State is the best DC event since Crisis on Infinite Earths, and I don't think I'm wrong, and I don't think Nick thinks I'm wrong. But we definitely disagree on who the best Flash is. I say it's Jay Garrick. He likes Barry Allen. There are other people who think that it's Wally West. Doesn't matter. But this is Future State Flash #2, the second part of the Death Race story in Future State Flash. it's a Barry and Wally story. And oh, by the way, Barry has all the rogue's weapons, which is just a wild thing. Like I said, it's another future state book. It's one of those books that if you don't get on it now, it will sell out by the time you get to your local comic shop. So, if you can get a hold of your comic shop tonight and say, hey, make sure you add this to my list, do it. But if you can't, just make sure you're there when they open in the morning and they're ready to go. This book technically was on sale already today in some stores. Other stores won't put it out until tomorrow, but it's something you should definitely be looking out for. So I am going to do this like this, and I'm going to tell you that we will be right back in just a minute. In this commercial break, though, we've got a preview for a new book coming from Dark Horse Comics. That's something you should totally be looking out for. And a reminder that Ryan Stegman will be joining us at the 8 o'clock hour tonight here on the EXP to talk about all things Venom. So stick around. We'll be back in just about a minute's time.
This is Zero is coming, and she's ready to party.
You ready, Nemo?
Like a monster. Feel it now. J-Zero.
To be continued. 3 little words that hold the secret to the next great story. 3 words that will thrill you, confound you, give life to new possibilities. Every variation of To Be Continued is a promise. A promise of adventure. A promise of excitement. A promise of unseen wonders and unexplored worlds. A promise that every issue you read makes you a part of a never-ending journey. And behind every page there will be an unopened door waiting for you. This story to be continued at your local comic book shop today. Visit comicshoplocator.com today.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back. This is the Pull List. I am, of course, as always, Kyle. This show is brought to you by Comic Shop Locator. Head over to bit.ly/comic locator or comicshoplocator.com to find a comic shop near you. Both links take you the same place, so it doesn't matter where you go. You still get to Comic Shop Locator. Head over to Comic Shop Locator. Type in, your zip code. And they'll tell you where the local comic shops are. It's really simple that way, and it's really easy, and it helps you to find local comic shops. If you're out there in the comments, if you're out there watching this on any of the platforms, we're live on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube, Twitch. We're live on my store pages, but we're live all these places. Tell us where your local comic shop is. Tell us what they are. Tell us why you like them, and we will shout them out on the show. Because we need to be going into our local comic shops, guys, and buying books and telling them what books we want well ahead of time so they can order them properly. Now, here's another book that's out tomorrow that I'm very excited for, only because I'm a big fan of traditional literature. I like the retelling of traditional stories that happens in comic books. And this is in large part DC's version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. On some regards, this is Man-Bat #1. His murderous meltdown begins here. Guys, Kirk Langston, who is Man-Bat, has struggled with this whole alter ego thing for a long time. And he's finally kind of, in this story, hit the bottom of, rock bottom. Like things have to change for him. And he's going to figure it out. But this is the one where Man-Bat finally becomes a full-fledged villain. He's always been a little bit villainous, a little bit not. But this is the one where he finally becomes a full-fledged villain. You're right, John. It is an amazing underused character. I just picked up and then sold and then picked up another first appearance of Man-Bat, and I've got the origin of Man-Bat, and he's a character that I really, really like because is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Or is he somebody who just can't handle that, that stuff that happens inside of him? And, I will say this. I mean, I'm someone who in the past has dealt with anger issues. I'm someone in the past who has dealt with a little bit of mental, stuff. I'm not going to say mental illness because there are people who suffer way worse than I do. But, I get Man-Bat. Like, he's somebody who wants to do good, and that's why, Kirk Langston invented the serum. But when he's Man-Bat, he can't. He's like the Hulk in that way. He switches, the switch flips, and he's a whole different person. And it really makes it an interesting perspective for the character. So I really like Man-Bat, and I'm really excited for this series. And this is one of the few DC books this week that's not a future state book. This one stands on its own and is an ongoing series. So make sure you're checking out Man-Bat. What is Batman? But he is a man dressed like a bat. Man-Bat is a bat that is also part man. So you figure that one out. All right. Let's talk TV for a minute. Do you guys know what a bottle episode is? A bottle episode on TV is one of those episodes where the cast is like stuck in a spot. They're locked in a room, or they're trapped in a closet, or they're trapped or something, and they can't move. Think about episodes of war shows and that kind of stuff where they're on a submarine and there's no escape. Or Murder on the Orient Express is a great example of a bottle story. Everything is confined to a certain space, and the whole story has to take place inside of that space. Well, IDW is on issue 3 of a book that is a bottle comic, which is Sea of Sorrows. Sea of Sorrows takes place aboard the SS Vagabond, which is a ship. But people keep disappearing, and there's a huge paranoia that grows amongst the people on the boat. And the reality is that this is a treasure hunt story that goes awry. And you always see on some of those channels you get on cable where we're going to go hunt for so-and-so's buried treasure, and they never find it. The thing about Sea of Sorrows is we don't know if they're going to find it or not, but if they do, is it going to be worth what it costs to get it? A lot of stores are going to be out of Sea of Sorrows, number one. I know you can get it digitally, or you might be able to, stores might be able to get a back order on it or reorder it. I know there are some stores that still have some, but I would check out Sea of Sorrows number 1 and number 2, and then read number 3. Or this is one that I would feel confident saying, wait for the trade. We don't normally say wait for the trade because we want you going into your local comic shop every week. But this is one of those that I feel is like a bingeable comic book. It takes place in a very defined setting, in a very defined world, and you could sit and read it all in one day. It might be a little emotionally too heavy for that, but it's totally something that's doable. So, Sea of Sorrows, number 3 on my pull list for this week as well. Let me grab my notes here. I know what's on my pull list, but I can't always remember the synopsis of everything until I've read it. So I have notes. The problem is that my notes sometimes are that thing where they're hard to grab. So if you're out there watching, tell us who your local comic shop is. Tell us why you go there and what you like about them. Shout out to the local comic shops we have here on the network. Local comic shops do live shows on this network all the time, including Rupp's Comics in Fremont, Ohio, Oh Yeah Comics in Muncie, Indiana, A Comic Shop in Florida, Jesse James Comics in Glendale, Arizona, Space Cadets Collection in Houston, Texas, and Fat Jack's Comic Crypt in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, with another location in New Jersey. I want to visit all of these stores. As someone who used to own a comic shop before he got into this business, I really want to visit all of those places. But we're going to move on to the next book. This is Fear Case #1, written by Matt Kint. I said last night on a show I was on that I would read Matt Kint writing paint drying. Joel's been to 2 of those. Joel, which ones? Guys, I think part of this cover's getting green screened. That's hysterical. Anyhow, so this is Fear Case #1 by Matt Kint. Art by Tyler Jenkins from Grass Kings. I'm just going to read you the solicitation because I think it does a better job of selling it than I ever could. A no-nonsense Secret Service agent finds his new age partner investigate a mysterious box known as the Fear Case, which has appeared throughout history at sites of disaster and tragedy. Whoever comes into possession of this case must pass it on within 3 days or face deadly consequences. The agents must track down this Fear Case while staying one step ahead of a psychotic cult and the otherworldly forces behind the case's existence. So here's the deal, guys. It's a little bit X-Files. It's a little bit There you go. Joel, shout out to Fat Jacks. It was his LCS when he was a kid in Center City, Philly. And you go there once in a while now. And oh yeah, in Muncie, you were born there, so you go back to visit. Hey, that's great. I really did think you were going to say Fat Jacks and just say both locations. So, it's great that you actually get to visit a couple stores. Try and visit some more. I've been to, I visit a lot of comic shops because it's my job. But it's really great to visit local comic shops all the time. Anyhow, back to Fear Case, guys. So it's a little bit the X-Files, a little bit The Ring, a little bit, that kind of stuff. A little bit Death Note, if you guys are manga fans. Like I said, this is one of those books that really intrigues me because it's Matt Kint. And again, as I've said, a couple of times, I would read Matt Kint writing paint drying. I think he's one of the best writers going, and I think his style of storytelling is ridiculously smart and incredibly entertaining. So this is a book I don't know a ton about. Like I said, the solicitation I think is the best sales pitch I can make for it, but it's one that I'm excited to pick up and read. Sometimes, guys, I grab books that I know nothing about because I'm more interested in reading the book and finding it out than I am about knowing about it. There's still something to going into a comic store and looking at the rack and saying, I have no idea what that is, but I'm going to pick it up. And this is one of those for me. I did as little research as possible on it. I just saw that it was Matt Kint and Tyler Jenkins, and I loved the art in Grass Kings. And so I put it on my list. I know that's not necessarily the way most people do things, but it is one of those things that I do that is maybe unique to me. Next book I want to talk about is Sonya Versal from Dynamite. So look, if we get to know each other over the next however long we do this show, you're going to find out that I am a big fan of sword-wielding, sorcery kind of All right, Joel, you drive out from New Jersey to Muncie, including some huge stores in Pittsburgh. I'll tell you what, man, you can hit, if you leave New Jersey and hit Fat Jacks in Philly, and you can actually hit Rupp's Comics in the middle on your way to Muncie. You can hit three of the shops we have represented regularly just on that drive. So that's pretty cool. That's kind of what I do too, is I plan a vacation and then I figure out which comic stores I can visit while I'm there. I'm planning a vacation for around Thanksgiving of this year if the pandemic lights up, and I'm looking at, okay, which city can I visit and also visit the most comic book stores in the week I'm going to be there or whatever. So that's, I like that idea. Anyhow, Sonya, Red Sonya. Guys, look, if it's sword and sorcery, I like it. Your Conan the Barbarians, your Red Sonyas, your Deja Thorises, your John Carter Warlord of Marses, any of those type of people who, giant sword, pretty much all you need. A little bit of magic, maybe some dragons, maybe some space aliens. I'm in. It's not hard to sell me on. And so Sonya Versal is a book that I'm very excited about because this is all the Sonyas. Red Sonya, Blue Sonya, Green Sonya, Orange Sonya, Saint Sonya, Hell Sonya. And those are just the ones they put in the notes. Let's not talk about all the other incarnations of Red Sonya that have been out there. So what it is it's an interdimensional story. An evil god kind of punishes all of the Sonyas from across the dimensions and send them basically to the same area, and they have to fight for supremacy by killing the other versions of themselves. So this is sort of Planet Hulk, but with Red Sonya. It's written by Christopher Hastings, who wrote Gwenpool, and art by Pasquale Colano, who did Dynamite. I really like his art. I think the art in Dynamite is phenomenal. I'm excited for the art in this book, but I'm more excited to see what happens when you have a whole planet of Red Sonja. And I keep calling her Red Sonja. That's not her name. Her name is Sonya. But when you have a whole planet of all of the Sonyas, I'm very excited to see what that looks like. Because it could go one of two ways. It could either be very entertaining and very bloody, or it could be very entertaining and not very bloody. Either way, you're in for a great story. And either way, you're in for, a fantastic look at a character that's been around a lot longer than anybody gives her credit for, and a character that I think more people should be reading, because if you go back and you read back, this new story, but you go back and you read Amy Chu's work on Sonya, you go back further than that, when Sonya was at Marvel, you get all of these great, really rich storylines that not enough people, I think, appreciate. So check out Sonya Versal, out tomorrow from your local comic shops. Now, we got a couple of books left that are on my pull list that come out tomorrow, but we're going to take a quick break and come back with those books. And then we're going to go into things that you should be looking to add to your pull list for when they come out. They're on FOC on Monday. So we'll talk about FOC and we'll talk about what all that stuff is when we get back. Check out the first commercial in this break, because it actually applies to one of our next segments. So that'll be fun. We'll be back in just a minute. up, everybody? We are back. This is the pull list on the comic book shopping experience. I am, as always, Kyle. And this show is, as always, brought to you by Comic Shop Locator. Head over to comicshoplocator.com or bit.ly/comic locator to find the comic shop in your area, to find a comic shop in your area. You head over there, you type in your zip code, and it tells you where the comic shops are, and it tells you what they do. It tells you, the events they participate in, like if they do Halloween Comic Fest or Free Comic Book Day, or if they partner with local libraries and schools, if they've got a kids section, that kind of thing. It's a really great tool if you're looking for a local comic shop. So we're blessed to have them as a sponsor, because without them, how would you find local comic shops? You'd have to, use the phone book like it's the 80s or something. I don't know. All right, we're going to transition back into my pull list. This is another book that comes out this week that I'm very excited about. That's on my pull list that I can't wait to read. This book is Shinokage. Is how you say that. Shadow of Death. Shinokage, Shadow of Death. This book is from a ridiculously small publisher. But what's cool about this book is it's kind of got a manga style feel. If you're not a manga fan, that's okay. It's still a comic book. It still reads like a comic book. And it's still storytelling like a comic book, but it's got that sort of manga crossover appeal. So this is after the murder of his clan's 7 samurai. The young warrior Hachiro is called upon to finish his training. Bound by a sense of honor to his sister and community, he battles through a gauntlet filled with demons, beasts, and his past, while his village braces for war. So I'll tell you, the reason this book even got on my radar is issue 2 has a cover by my friend Tony Moy. So I went out and made sure I added the whole series to my list, because I think stories like this that when you have stories like this that kind of cross over that manga feel, that Japanese storytelling feel, that anime feel, plus the comic noir feel, the emotion you can portray in a comic, the action you can portray in a comic. I think they're really great reads. They always have been. Some great examples of that are things like Akira, the comic books for Akira, and some of the other things that have been developed from that manga world into comic books. So if you're looking for something a little off the beaten path, check out Shinokage, available in stores. If your store doesn't carry it, ask them if they can order it. I bet they can get it on back order, or they can get it on a reorder from Diamond. And if they can't, reach out to one of the great stores here on the Comic Book Shopping Experience for an opportunity to pick it up from them. All right, so every week, guys, I'm going to give you my pick of the week, which is a book that's coming out that week that I believe is a can't miss, which is to say that if you miss it because it's not on your pull list, I don't know what to tell you. You've made a mistake. And this week's book is Maniac of New York by Elliot Kalin and Andrea Moody from Aftershock Comics. Maniac of New York is a kind of a slice of life horror story. It's from Aftershock, who tells stories you recognize, but turned on their head and jumbled around and twisted. Not the word I wanted to use, but it's the word I'm going to go with. So the story on this one is that before the book started, there was a slasher on the streets of New York. Not something that you couldn't actually see happen, especially in, pre-Rudy Giuliani New York days. Maniac Harry is inhuman, unkillable, and unstoppable, which is why the authorities' solution has been to ignore him. He's the one doing the slashing. And let New York adapt to a world where death can strike at any moment. When Maniac Harry starts killing his way through subway system, trauma-haunted police aide Gina Green and disgraced NYPD detective Zelda Pettibone become determined to go rogue and destroy him, but how can they fight a monster when they can't fight City Hall? So here's the thing, right? It's kind of a Son of Sam story. It's kind of a story like you've heard from out of New York for so many years. There's a thing, and what can the cops do, and yada yada. And it's a rogue detective and a vigilante police and this kind of thing. And that's a tough story to tell. But, the tropes are what make this story good, in my opinion. Because they come from Elliott Kalin, who isn't traditionally that guy. He wrote on The Daily Show and Mystery Science Theater 3000 before coming to comics, where he wrote Spider-Man and the X-Men. And then Andrea Moody, who did the art for Port of Earth, which was gorgeous, and Hellblazer. It's a horrifying story of what happens when terror becomes the new normal. Frightening and thought-provoking and sometimes funny. This is why I think this book is a can't miss, right? If you look at everything so seriously, and this is a serious topic, it just becomes another story. But if you take and you put the twist on it, which is your slasher story, your New York vigilante story, every Law and Order episode ever, but you make it a comedy. You add some jokes, you sprinkle in some jokes just right, and you've got the recipe for a winner, I think. So Maniac of New York is my pick of the week. Pick it up from your local comic shop. It is from Aftershock Comics. And guys, just so you know, Aftershock Comics is one of these companies that's relatively new, but has a lot of people that have been around for a while kind of at the helm and leading it. And more books from Aftershock Comics are becoming huge hits. We just had Scout's Honor from David Pepos. That was a huge success. This is another opportunity for that. There's a story coming that we talked about last week called Nuclear Family that's based on a Philip K. Dick short story that I think has a ton of potential as well. You're going to hear a lot from me about Aftershock because part of my pull list, I have a line on my pull list that just says every Aftershock title. That's how I read Aftershock, is I just get them all. So I get that not everybody can do that, so I'm going to talk to you about individual books, but I think this is one that if you've got the extra dough this week to put up on your pull list, I think you should. Now we're going to move on to the things I think you should be adding to your pull list for next month. So, there's one more book we need to talk about that's out this week. It's a trade paperback. I knew I was forgetting something. This is Flash Fun Facts, written by Mayim Bialik, PhD, a.k.a. Blossom, a.k.a. Amy Farrah Fowler from The Big Bang Theory, a.k.a. a real-life neurobiologist. All right? Like, she's smart. Real smart. But also, there are a ton of other collaborators on this book, including the one and only Amy Chu. This is a story about Flash. And it's Flash Facts. And it's an all-ages book written by, again, Mayim Bialik, and then collaborated on by a bunch of other people. It's a trade paperback. It's available in stores this week. I think it's something you should check out. Let me check and see what else I've got on this list. That's it for... Yeah, that's it for... I just want to make sure that I get everything, and I have. Okay, so we're going to take another quick break here, another real short one, and come back to our pull list episode. We're going to talk about things you should be adding to your pull list that come out in a few weeks. We're going to talk about FOC and what FOC means. And just a reminder, tonight at 8:30-ish, in the 8 o'clock hour on In Stores This Week with Nick and I and our special guest. We have another guest commentator in this week. Last week we had Vincent Faust from Dynamite. We have somebody else coming in this week. But we will be joined by Ryan Venom Boy Stegman, the artist who is responsible for this current run of Venom. So make sure you tune in for that. We'll be back in just about a minute. What's up, everybody? We're back. I really do have to fix the ending of that thing. It just kind of ends abruptly, doesn't it? Oh, well. I'm Kyle, as always. This is the pull list, where we talk about what's on my pull list and what I think should be on your pull list, and books you should be picking up in your local comic book store. We are about 15 minutes away from Minute to Skim It with Miss Jen and Hannah, which is super fun. It's always a super fun show. And then following that is in stores this week with Nick and I, where we will be talking to Ryan Stegman, which I talked about before the break, and there's an ad during the break, and now I'm talking about after the break. Y'all are going to be there for that, right? Like, I don't need to keep talking about it. Y'all are just going to show up. Can we have an understanding? Do we have an agreement that y'all will be there? Oh, well. All right. So we're going to talk about things that are coming out in the future that I think you should keep your eye on. Not the least of which is The Swamp Thing, #1 from DC Comics. The Swamp Thing, #1 from DC Comics. Written again. Yeah, sure enough. The green is getting green screened. So there are parts of this cover. This cover doesn't look like this, but it's getting green screen. That's hysterical. Anyhow. So Swamp Thing #1 from DC Comics, written by Ram V again. Pat, are you serious or are you trolling me? Anyhow, Swamp Thing, written by Ram V. This is the continuation of Ram's storytelling. It's a 10-issue miniseries that stars Levi Cammy as the next generation of Green. Unable to control his transformation into the monstrous Swamp Thing, Levi is thrust into a harsh, unforgiving mystery of grisly murders committed by a supernatural desert legend. Pat, it's in the 8 o'clock hour, Eastern. So there you go. You've got Swamp Thing, you've got Ram V, who always has a unique look. Oh, and by the way, the art's by Mike Perkins, like, with variants by Francisco Mattina. Like, is there anything about this book that's wrong? Is there anything about this book you can't get behind? If there is, maybe we can't be friends anymore. I don't know. We'll figure that out. Next things next. Proctor Valley Road. Proctor Valley Road is a story from Boom Studios. I knew I was forgetting stuff. Boom Studios. This is... I'm not going to tell you who it's written by yet, okay? Because, again, green screen. Hold on, guys. I'm going to do a thing here. Just give me a second. See if this helps. Doesn't help. That's super weird. Anyhow, so this is Proctor Valley Road. It's from Boom Studios. It is a book for fans of Paper Girls. It is a pretty background, Miss Jen. That's the one and only Toledo, Ohio. So this is for fans of Paper Girls and Die, from a legendary writer. Okay, legendary writer. I'm not gonna tell you who. Alex Child, who did Holby City for the BBC, and art by Naomi Franquiz, who did Tales from Harrow County, is a chilling new horror series about the mysterious monsters that haunt Proctor Valley Road and the 4 misfit teenagers who have to stop them. All right, are you ready for who wrote it? You guys want to know who wrote Proctor Valley Road? Proctor Valley Road? Y'all, it's new from Grant Morrison from Boom Studios. So you're definitely going to want to check that sucker out. Can't go wrong there. It's Grant Morrison, which is always a good choice when it comes to talking about horror books. So I'm going to try and fix my camera just a smidge here. There we go. Like that. Now, we'll move on from Proctor Valley Road to Nottingham. This is a book from Mad Cave, Nottingham #1. Y'all, this is the other side of the story of, the whole Sheriff of Nottingham thing and the whole Robin of Locksley and take from the rich and give to the poor. But what happens if you're the sheriff and there's a dude shooting tax collectors with arrows? Like serial killer style? You got to try and do your job, And this is the story of, the sheriff of Nottingham. It's the other side of the story. Robin Hood and his merry men, they're terrorists. So it's something to look out at from Mad Cave Studios. Be watching for the ads for this. I believe we have them coming up. But this is a book that is on FOC Monday. You need to get your orders in by Monday to your local comic shop if you want Nottingham #1. All right. Next one is Jonna in the Impossible Monsters #1. Jonna in the Impossible Monsters #1. This is from Oni Press. You saw the ad for it earlier. It kind of does all the explaining. It's sort of prehistory, sort of not prehistory, with giant dinosaur kind of things, but that aren't dinosaur kind of things. They're monsters. It's a family story set in this unbelievable backdrop. A book that I've had my order in for Miss Jen since she announced she was going to be getting them. This is ENIAC #1 from Bad Idea. ENIAC #1 is at the height of World War II, the most ingenious minds began to race to create super weapons capable of ending the war with one push of a button. One of these projects gave us the atom bomb, and another produced the world's first supercomputer, ENIAC, electronic numerical integrator and computer. Oh no, it's an anagram. Y'all are going to find out I'm not a fan of anagrams. An immeasurably complex mathematical model that targeted the Axis war machine by calculating missile trajectories and troop movements. Everybody knows that. It's real-life American history. But this is maybe not the traditional American history story. Next up, Deadpool Nerdy 30. This is a anthology one-shot. And you've got stories in this about Deadpool from Gail Simone, Scotty Young, Fabian Nicieza, Jerry Duggan, Brian Posehn, Kelly Thompson, and Rob Liefeld. With art from Patrick Zucker, Adam Conley, Kevin Labranda, Ed McGuinness did a cover, and so did Mike Hawthorne. Okay, guys, it's Deadpool celebrating Deadpool's birthday. Look, you can't miss Deadpool celebrating Deadpool's birthday. It doesn't make any sense. Deadpool celebrating Deadpool's birthday is like, the kind of stuff dreams and nightmares are made of. We also have trade paperbacks and things coming out that are on FOC this week, including Red Sonja, The Children's Crusade. Look, Mark Russell's been writing Red Sonja, and we already talked about how much I love Red Sonja and all the Sonjas. So this is an opportunity to jump on Volume 3 of Mark Russell's run, and Bob Q is the artist. No, that's not his real name, but that's okay. Like, the art is phenomenal. The art is next level on this Red Sonja book, so you need to make sure, if you're into Red Sonja, if you're into Sword and Sorcery, if you like Mark Russell's writing, which why wouldn't you like Mark Russell's writing, you get Red Sonja, The Children's Crusade. It collects the 3rd volume of the ongoing story that's still happening. They're well into their 4th volume now. So this is a great way to start catching up, to pick up the first 3 volumes. Your local comic shop should be able to order them all for you. All right. And then finally, we have Ian Fleming's James Bond, Agent of Spectre #1. It's a new ongoing series with James Bond, but it's Spectre. And I love Spectre, but I hate that Spectre's an anagram. Look, this is another one of those books that when they announced it, I put it on my pull list right away. Every James Bond story that Dynamite has dropped since they started publishing the title again a few years ago has been great. Especially in a world where we don't know when the new James Bond movie is going to come out, or if there's going to be a new James Bond, or who the new James Bond is going to be, or should it be Idris Elba, or should it be Idris Elba? They're trying to figure out who the next James Bond is. If it isn't Idris Elba, you've done it wrong. But still, James Bond, Agent of Spectre. We all saw the movie, the Spectre movie. It's such a great James Bond story. And Dynamite does such a great job with this IP, with this story. So you can't go wrong picking it up. Add it to your pull list this week for FOC on Monday. So I've been telling you guys we're going to talk about what FOC means. And we're going to talk about it every week. Y'all are going to get tired of hearing about it. But until I know you all are going into your local comic shop and ordering books ahead of time before FOC, I'm going to keep harping on it because it's important. And because comic shop locator. So FOC is the last chance comic book stores have to change their orders of a comic book before it comes out. You know, they placed their orders a few months ago, their initial orders, and then the FOC happens about 3 weeks before the book comes out in most cases. So if you tell your comic shop before FOC, hey, this is something I want, there are a few things that it does for you. Number one, it makes sure you get the book. How angry do you get when you go to the comic shop on Wednesday or Thursday or Friday or whenever you go in? Because life happens. You don't always get there right first thing on Wednesday, and they're sold out of the book you wanted. You get real bummed out, right? If you tell them before FOC that you want the book, that doesn't happen because most comic shops will hold it for you. 2, it makes sure that the comic shop can order appropriately for them. Guys, things are tight right now. If you don't know, your local comic shop just had to FOC Berserker from Boom Studios, which is a big investment for a lot of comic book shops because it's a great book that they need to invest heavily on. But things are tight. We have a pandemic. We have shutdowns. We have limited capacity. We didn't have free comic book day. We don't have Comic-Con. All these things are affecting the bottom line at local comic shops. So comic shops can't afford to order extras of things. They just can't. It's why you don't buy an extra gallon of milk when you go to the grocery store. Nobody wants to buy a gallon of milk that's going to go bad before you drink it. Same thing with local comic shops. They can't order extras of things just because it feels good. They got to do what's smart. And if you tell them ahead of time, hey, I want this book, now they know they've sold that copy. So if they normally order 5 and you come into them and say, hey, I want this book, now they order 6 and they know that they're still okay. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but it's a huge deal for a comic shop owner. It's huge to know exactly how many copies of a book they're going to sell. And the third thing it does is it lets the publishers know how much the fans want the book. You know, that way they can send their print runs. They can get their orders out. They know this book is in demand, so they know that issue 2 is going to be important. They know that, hey, we can go to Hollywood and present this as something that people are going to want. It gives them all the confidence in the world in the title they've pushed out to say, all right, we're going to do some stuff with this. So that's why you need to order before FOC. How do you do that? You go to bit.ly/comic locator. It's going that direction. There it goes. bit.ly/comic locator or comicshoplocator.com. Type in your zip code and it'll tell you where the local comic shop is closest to you. Then you go in and say, hi, I would like to order these books. And most comic shops will say, okay, here's how you order these books. And it's simple. Look, I'm going to keep preaching on this because it's the message I feel compelled to bring. But right now, we're going to switch over. We are going to visit with Miss Jen and Hannah at Space Cadets Collection in Houston, Texas. I'm stalling because I didn't click the things I needed to click beforehand to be ready. But we're gonna send it over to those guys for Minute to Skim It. We will be back in just a couple of seconds with Miss Jen and Hannah. Thank you for being here with the Pull List. I will see you guys in about 45 minutes for the recap of this show.
What an entrance. I was enjoying Kyle's show, so I was okay with him keeping it going. I was like, you tell him, Kyle. In my brain, I was saying, you tell him, Steve Dave. What's going on, Jason? You are watching Minute to Skim It on the Experience. So, hello. If you guys could take a second sometime this week and like and share. Please like and share. It makes me so happy inside. It is the way you can share all this awesome nerdy information with friends or convert friends that you want to be nerds. See? It's important.
Yeah.
All right, we've got lots of books to review for you guys today. And Hannah just basically showed up with just the number ones and showed them to me, and I was like, "Oh, we have
just for the indies."
Just for the indies, yeah. I was like, we have got a lot to do. There's some hot books today.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to start with what's down here below. This is a really cool. What was that, Jason? Sorry, I didn't see the very last part. Aw, thank you. Thank you. Anytime. Devil's Dominion. This is from Black Box Comics. It's kind of an interesting take. The main character has, in some time in the past, sold her soul. And she basically says that it was for good cause. But you don't find out what it is in this book. I'm sure that that's going to come later. But she, at some point, because of her selling her soul, gets a demon kind of like version of herself. She conquers she basically gets power over the demon part of herself. So therefore takes her soul back, but then decides to use that ability to go and find and fight other demons that are on other people. And when she does this, she takes on her demon form. So it's all kinds of cool looking. And I will let you read the rest to like discover the rest of what that means and who might show up if you use that power for kind of like good. Look at that cover. That's what I'm saying. It's a beautiful thing. Here, I'll give it real close. Real close. Yep. There you go. Banana's turn. Hi, Miss Jenna.
Hi, Jan. Hi, Hannah. Hello, people watching the show. All right.
That's Jenna on the other side.
Yeah.
Also known as Jen, not to be confusing.
Yeah. Transformers Beast Wars #1. If you're not a huge Transformers fan, this is a good place to jump in because the very last page, you can skip everything and figure out who's who. It has like a kind of a chart that tells you who are on which team and what they look like.
Confusing, man.
Yeah, because a lot of times, especially in darker lighting, they look very similar because they're all giant robots.
Right. So for Beast Wars, we're not going to get Optimus Prime and Soundwave and those guys, right? This is another group.
I think so. A lot of their names are very similar though, because they all have like